My sister didn't forget to give me a seat at her wedding. She gave me exactly the seat she thought I deserved. Not inside the barn with the music, the candles, and the family tables. Not beside my parents. Not even near the people who had known me since I was a child. My name was written in pencil under the word Overflow on a small card beside the coat closet next to a rack of winter jackets, a mop bucket, and a trash bag full of wilted roses. My mother looked at me and whispered, "Jenna, please don't start. Your sister deserves one perfect day." Then my sister Brielle walked over in her white dress, looked at my little hallway table and smiled. "Some people are family," she said. "Some people are just extra." She didn't know I had heard the voice memo. She didn't know I had listened to her laugh about sending her fiancé's 8-year-old daughter away after the honeymoon. And when I looked across the barn and saw little Lucy standing alone in her yellow dress, trying not to cry because Brielle had just pushed her out of the bridal photos, I realized something. Brielle wasn't only talking about me. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I picked up the wedding gift I had brought, walked out into the cold North Carolina evening, and got into my car. 20 minutes later, the music inside the barn stopped in the middle of the father-daughter dance. Then my mother screamed so loud people outside turned their heads. Here's what happened. The wedding was at Cedar Hollow Farm, a renovated barn outside Asheville, with string lights, white roses, polished wood floors, and just enough rustic charm to make a regular family feel like they were living inside a magazine. There was a chalkboard sign at the entrance that said, "Welcome to the wedding of Brielle and Caleb." Brielle was my younger sister. To strangers, she was sweet. To men, she was soft in exactly the right way. To my parents, she was the daughter who needed protecting, celebrating, forgiving, and remembering. To me, she had always been a storm in a pretty dress. She broke things, then cried until someone else cleaned up the glass. Most of the time, that someone was me. I drove 4 hours from Raleigh that morning after working a double shift at the elementary school where I was a counselor. I changed out of my work clothes in the staff bathroom, put on a dark green dress I bought on clearance, and fixed my makeup in the reflection of my car window at a gas station. My mother texted me 3 times before I even reached the highway. "Please be on time." Then, "Please don't bring up the seating arrangement." It was complicated. And finally, "This is Brielle's day. Let her have it." That was my whole life in 3 text messages. Be useful. Stay quiet. Let Brielle have it. When we were kids, Brielle got the bedroom with 2 windows because Mom said she needed pretty light. I got the room above the garage because I was mature enough not to complain. Brielle got dance lessons, cheer uniforms, birthday parties, framed photos, and a scrapbook full of firsts. I got a house key at 13 because Mom said I was independent. Independent. That word followed me around like a sentence. Independent meant nobody checked if I had dinner. Independent meant I could walk home in the rain. Independent meant when I got straight A's, Dad said, "Good job, kiddo," without looking up from the TV. Independent meant when Brielle cried, the whole house ran toward her. When I cried, Mom closed my bedroom door and said, "Jenna, don't be dramatic." The worst part was that I believed them. I believed I was easier. I believed I didn't need much. I believed wanting to be noticed made me selfish. Then one Thanksgiving, 3 years before the wedding, Mom asked me to grab a serving bowl from her bedroom closet. I opened the wrong drawer and found an old memory book. Pink cover, soft corners. The kind of book a mother buys when she plans to remember everything. I opened it. Brielle's first word. Brielle's first recital. Brielle's first tooth. Brielle's favorite pancakes. Brielle cried when she saw the ocean. Page after page. Year after year. There was not one line about me. Not my birth weight. Not my first day of school. Not my favorite song. Not even my name. When I asked Mom about it, she laughed gently like I had pointed out a missing fork. "Oh, honey," she said. "You were always fine." Brielle needed more remembering. That sentence stayed with me, because that was when I understood. I had not been forgotten. I had been edited out. So when I arrived at Cedar Hollow Farm and saw the family quilt hanging behind the sweetheart table, I should have expected it. The quilt was supposed to be the emotional centerpiece of the reception. Mom had spent months talking about it. Each square was made from fabric that meant something to both families. Caleb's side had pieces from his father's flannel shirts, his grandmother's curtains, and a yellow square from Lucy's first Easter dress. Our side had lace from Mom's wedding veil satin, from Brielle's prom dress, and a strip from the pink robe Brielle wore the morning she got engaged. I knew that quilt well, because I helped make it. For 3 nights, I sat at Mom's dining room table after work sewing squares while Brielle scrolled through her phone and complained that wedding planning was emotionally exhausting. My square was supposed to be blue cotton from Dad's old work shirt. He wore that shirt the summer I was 15 when he and I painted the garage together after Brielle refused because it was too dusty. I had chosen that fabric myself, but when I looked at the quilt behind the sweetheart table, my square was gone. In its place was a white satin patch, embroidered with Brielle's new initials. BP. Brielle Porter. I stood there staring at it for too long. Mom noticed. Her smile tightened. Jenna, not now. I turned to her. Where's my piece? She glanced around, embarrassed that I had asked in public. The quilt looked crowded. We had to simplify it. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Across the barn, Brielle saw me looking at the quilt. She gave me a small smile. Not a happy smile. A winning one. That was when I knew my seat beside the coat closet was not a mistake. The coordinator found me near the seating chart a few minutes later. She was young, nervous with a headset and a clipboard hugged to her chest. Can I help you find your table? I'm Jenna Riley, I said. Sister of the bride. Her eyes dropped to the clipboard. She turned one page, then another. Then her face changed. Oh, she said softly. I knew that it was the sound people made when they realized someone had been cruel, but they were not allowed to say it. She led me past the barn doors, past the bar, past the gift table, and into a side hallway. There was one round folding table there, 3 chairs, a plastic water pitcher, a stack of extra napkins, and a little card that said, Overflow. My name was penciled underneath. Just Jenna, not Jenna Riley, not sister of the bride, just Jenna. The coordinator looked genuinely sorry. This is what I was given. I nodded because it wasn't her fault. The people who hurt you are rarely the ones holding the clipboard. I sat down. From the hallway I could see flashes of the reception through the open barn doors. The tables glowing under string lights. My mother laughing with Brielle's bridesmaids. My father practicing his toast with one hand in his pocket. Caleb kneeling beside his 8-year-old daughter Lucy, tying the ribbon on her shoe. Lucy wore a pale yellow dress and a flower crown that kept slipping over one eye. She looked nervous. She looked like a little girl trying very hard to be brave. Caleb kissed her forehead and said something that made her smile. That small moment almost changed my mind, because Caleb was a good man. That was the worst part. He wasn't rich in some movie way. He owned a small HVAC repair business with his cousin. He lived in a blue house with a porch swing, a vegetable garden, and chalk drawings on the driveway. His wife had died 4 years earlier. Lucy was his whole world. And Brielle had chosen him the way some people choose a house with good bones. Not because she loved what was already inside, because she saw what she could change. I knew that because 2 weeks before the wedding, Brielle accidentally sent a voice memo to the wrong group chat. The chat was called Wedding Weekend Girls. I had been added months earlier because someone needed to send hotel links, parking instructions, dress pickup times, and reminder lists. Nobody spoke to me in that chat unless they needed something. That Tuesday night, I was sitting on my couch eating cold pasta when my phone buzzed. A voice memo from Brielle appeared, then disappeared. Deleted. But not fast enough. My phone had already downloaded it. I don't know why I pressed play. Maybe some part of me already knew. Brielle's voice filled my apartment loose and laughing. I swear Caleb is so easy. He thinks I'm this sweet bonus mom angel. It's actually adorable. Another woman laughed in the background. Brielle kept going. After the wedding, I'm changing that whole house. I cannot live with dead wife curtains in a kid's room right next to the master. Lucy can stay with Elaine Moore. She already likes it there. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Then she said the line that made my stomach turn. Once I'm Mrs. Porter, nobody is going to tell me what to do in that house. Caleb will give in. He always does. A few tears and he folds like laundry. Someone in the background said, Brie, that's awful. Brielle laughed. No, it's smart. I'm not ending up like Jenna working some sad school job acting proud because she pays her own rent. If you play it right, men build you a life. I sat there in my little apartment, the pasta going cold in my lap, listening to my sister talk about a grieving father and a motherless child like they were furniture she planned to move after closing day. I saved the voice memo, not because I wanted revenge, because my whole life Brielle had said ugly things and then denied them. My whole life, Mom had told me I misunderstood. Dad had told me to let it go. Everyone had told me Brielle didn't mean it. This time I wanted proof that I was not crazy. I thought about sending it to Caleb right away. I really did. But then I hesitated. Maybe she was drunk. Maybe she was showing off. Maybe I had no right to step into someone else's relationship. Maybe I was doing what everyone always accused me of doing. making trouble. That is what being dismissed for years does to you. It teaches you to distrust your own pain. So I brought the voice memo with me to the wedding. Not as a plan. As a line in the sand. I told myself if Brielle showed even one sign of real love for Lucy, I would delete it. If she included her, if she softened around her, if she treated Caleb's daughter like a child instead of an obstacle, I would let the day pass. But then I saw the quilt. Then I saw my seat. Then I saw Lucy walk up to Brielle before the ceremony, holding a small bracelet made of white beads and yellow thread. "I made this for you," Lucy said. Her voice was so quiet I barely heard it from the hallway. Brielle smiled for the photographer. She took the bracelet. "Oh, sweetie, that's adorable." The photographer lowered his camera and turned away to adjust his lens. The second he did, Brielle's smile vanished. She leaned down, still holding the bracelet between two fingers. "Not now, Lucy," she whispered. "Go stand with your grandmother before you wrinkle my dress." Lucy's little hands dropped to her sides. I said, "Not now." Then Brielle slipped the bracelet into one of the bridesmaids' hands without even looking at it. "Put this somewhere," she said. Lucy walked back to Elaine with her head down. That was the moment I stopped wondering whether the voice memo had been a joke. If it had only been about me, I might have swallowed it like I always did. But Lucy was 8, and I knew exactly what it felt like to grow up in a house where one girl was allowed to matter and another was trained to disappear. A few minutes later, Brielle walked into the hallway. Her gown was fitted expensive, covered in tiny pearls that caught every light. Her makeup was perfect. Her smile was sharper than the pins in her veil. "Well," she said, looking at my folding table, "this is cozy." I looked up. "Did you do this?" "Do what?" "My seat." She blinked slowly, innocent as a pageant queen. "Oh, Jenna." There were space limits. You know how weddings are. There are empty chairs inside, for photographers, bags, people who matter to the flow. The words were quiet. That made them worse. I stood. "I'm your sister." Her face changed then. Not completely, just enough for the mask to slip. "You're my sister when Mom needs errands done," she said. "You're my sister when Dad needs somebody to call when his back hurts. But today is about my real family, my future family. And I'm not part of that." She smiled. "Jenna, you were never really part of anything. You just hovered around the edges and called it loyalty." For a moment, I couldn't breathe, because there it was, the family secret finally spoken out loud. I was not dramatic. I was not sensitive. I was not imagining it. They had built the room without me and acted offended when I noticed the missing chair. A bridesmaid called from inside Brielle photos. Brielle didn't move. She wanted me to cry. She wanted me to raise my voice. She wanted a scene she could use later. See, this is why we didn't seat her inside. So I gave her nothing. I picked up the wedding gift from the table. It was wrapped in brown paper and tied with blue ribbon. Inside was a hand-carved wooden memory box I had bought for Caleb and Lucy. Their names were burned into the lid. Caleb and Lucy, not Caleb and Brielle. I think some honest part of me knew before the rest of me did. Brielle's eyes dropped to the box. "What's that?" "A wedding gift." "For me?" I looked at her. "No," I said. "Not anymore." Her smile faltered. That was the first real expression I had seen from her all day. I walked past her before she could speak. At the gift table near the barn entrance, guests had stacked envelopes, wrapped boxes, and kitchen appliances in white paper. I placed the wooden box near the back. Then I took out my phone. My thumb hovered over the voice memo. For 1 second, I heard Mom's voice in my head. "Don't make drama." Then I looked through the barn doors and saw Lucy sitting beside Elaine, turning her empty wrist in her lap where the bracelet should have been. No little girl should have to earn a place in her father's new family. So I forwarded the voice memo to Elaine. Caleb's mother, the woman who had raised him, the woman who looked at Lucy like she was the last light in the room. With it, I sent one sentence. "Please listen before he gives his daughter a stepmother." Then I left. Outside, the air smelled like cut grass and cold rain. The mountains were dark blue beyond the parking lot. I got into my car, shut the door, and sat there with both hands on the steering wheel. Inside the barn, people were clapping. The ceremony had started. I should have driven away, but I couldn't. Not yet. I sat in the darkness and watched the glowing barn like it was a house I had finally stopped trying to enter. The ceremony went on. The reception began. For a while, everything looked perfect from the outside. Guests laughed. Music played. A server carried trays across the patio. Someone opened the barn doors wider and I caught a glimpse of Brielle spinning in her white dress while people cheered. Then came dinner. Then speeches. Later I heard the details from 3 cousins, 1 bridesmaid, and a video someone posted online before deleting it. Dad gave his toast first. He called Brielle the heart of our family. He said she had always known how to love fully. He said Caleb and Lucy were lucky to have her. People clapped. Mom cried. Brielle dabbed her eyes like she had practiced it. Then the DJ announced the father-daughter dance. The lights dimmed. The first notes of some country song floated through the barn. Dad took Brielle's hand. She rested her head on his shoulder. The photographer moved closer. Everyone watched. And then Elaine walked to the DJ table. She was not crying. That was what people remembered. She was pale but steady. She handed the DJ her phone and said something quietly. The DJ looked confused. Then he looked at Caleb. Caleb looked at the phone. Then at his mother. Then at Brielle. The music kept playing for 3 more seconds. Then it stopped. The silence rolled through the barn in waves. Brielle lifted her head from Dad's shoulder. What's going on? Caleb didn't answer. Elaine did. I think before this family celebrates any further, Caleb needs to hear something. Brielle laughed, but it sounded thin. Elaine, not now. This is incredibly rude. Elaine looked at her. You're right. It is rude to ruin a wedding. Then she turned to Caleb. But it is worse to ruin a child's home. The barn went quiet. Even the kids stopped moving. Brielle's face changed. She knew. She knew before the first word played. No, she said. Caleb looked at her. Is it your voice? Brielle's mouth opened. Nothing came out. The DJ pressed play. My sister's voice filled the barn. Bright, careless, cruel. I swear Caleb is so easy. He thinks I'm this sweet bonus mom angel. It's actually adorable. A gasp came from the table closest to the dance floor. Mom stood so fast her chair scraped backward. Dad looked frozen, still holding Brielle's hand. The voice memo continued. After the wedding, I'm changing that whole house. I cannot live with dead wife curtains and a kid's room right next to the master. Lucy can stay with Elaine more. Caleb turned toward Lucy. She was sitting at the front table with frosting on her fork. Her eyes were wide, too wide. Caleb crossed the room in 3 steps and knelt in front of her. He gently covered one of her ears as if he could shield her from words that had already landed. Elaine stood beside them, one hand on Lucy's shoulder. Brielle's face went white. Turn it off. Nobody moved. The recording kept playing. Once I'm Mrs. Porter, nobody's going to tell me what to do in that house. Caleb will give in. He always does. A few tears and he folds like laundry. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Then came the part about me. I'm not ending up like Jenna working some sad school job acting proud because she pays her own rent. The barn made a sound I had never heard from my family before. Not pity, not shock, recognition. Like people finally understood that the cruelty had not started with Caleb or Lucy. It had been there all along. It had simply found new targets. Brielle rushed toward the DJ table. Caleb stood. Stop, he said. One word. Low. Broken. The DJ stopped the audio. The silence afterward felt heavier than the voice memo. Brielle turned in a circle searching for someone to save her. Mom moved first. Everybody, calm down, she said, voice shaking. This is a private family matter. Elaine looked at her. A child being spoken about like furniture is not private. Brielle pointed at Elaine. You hate me. You've always hated me. Elaine's face did not change. My granddaughter made you a bracelet. You wore it for one photo and then handed it away like trash. People looked toward Lucy's empty wrist. Lucy pulled her hand into her lap. That tiny movement hurt worse than any scream. Brielle flinched, then turned to Caleb. Baby, listen to me. I was joking. Caleb stared at her. About sending my daughter away? No, not like that. About my dead wife's curtains. I was stressed. About me folding if you cried. Her eyes filled. There it was. The old trick. The trembling lip. The tears. The helpless little girl act that had worked on my parents for 30 years. She reached for his arm. I love you. Caleb stepped back. No, he said. You loved what you thought my life could give you. The whole room went still. Brielle shook her head. No. You don't get to do this. Not here. Not in front of everybody. Caleb's voice cracked. You did this in front of everybody when you pretended to love my daughter. That was when Mom screamed. Not words. Just a sharp sound like panic and anger breaking through the same door. Dad dropped Brielle's hand. For the first time in my life, he did not reach for her when she cried. Brielle saw it. Her face twisted. This was Jenna. The way she said my name was not a name. It was a weapon. She did this because she's jealous. She has always been jealous. She sat outside like a victim, and now she ruined my wedding. Mom looked toward the barn doors like I might appear so she could finally blame someone familiar. But Caleb was not looking at the doors. He was looking at Brielle. "You put your sister outside." Brielle blinked. "What?" Jenna was outside. She was being dramatic. Elaine turned to my parents. "Your other daughter was seated in a hallway." No one answered. That silence said enough. Someone near the Riley table whispered, "Wait. She's the bride's sister." Another guest said not quietly enough, "Why was she sitting by the coats?" A cousin near the bar added, "And why wasn't she in any of the family photos?" Mom's face turned red. Dad looked down at the floor. For the first time that night, Brielle was not the only one exposed. My parents were too. All those years of calling me independent. All those years of saying I didn't need attention. All those years of asking me to help, but never making space for me. Suddenly, it was not hidden inside our house anymore. It was standing under string lights in front of 200 people. Brielle let out a bitter laugh. "Oh my God. Are we really pretending Jenna is the victim now?" She had a seat. Beside the coat closet, someone muttered. Brielle whipped around. "She doesn't fit with the vibe." She never has. There it was again. The truth escaping before she could dress it up. Caleb looked at Brielle like he was finally seeing the whole person, not the polished version she had sold him. He slipped off his ring. He didn't throw it. He didn't make a speech. He simply placed it on the sweetheart table beside 2 untouched champagne glasses. "I don't know what tomorrow looks like," he said, voice shaking. "But I know my daughter is not spending one more hour being treated like baggage." Then he picked Lucy up. Lucy wrapped both arms around his neck and buried her face in his shoulder. Elaine picked up the wooden memory box from the gift table and followed them out. Guests parted without a word. Brielle stood in the middle of the dance floor in her perfect white dress, surrounded by flowers, candles, string lights, and the wreckage of every lie she thought would carry her into a better life. No music, no applause, no rescue, just silence. Then Dad looked at the quilt behind the sweetheart table. The family quilt, the one I had helped sew. His eyes moved over every square. Brielle's lace, Brielle's satin, Brielle's robe, Brielle's initials. Then his face changed. "Where is Jenna's square?" he asked. Mom started crying harder. "Mark, not now." Dad didn't look at her. He looked at Brielle. "Where is it?" Brielle threw up her hands. "Are you serious? My wedding is falling apart and you're asking about fabric." Dad's voice was quiet. It was never just fabric. For once he understood. Too late. But he understood. Brielle laughed, but it sounded ugly now. "Oh, please. Jenna has spent her whole life acting wounded because she's boring. She's nothing. She has always been nothing." That sentence finished what the voice memo started. Every face in the barn turned cold, because even people who had tried to excuse her could not excuse that. Dad looked at her like he was seeing someone he had raised but never really known. Then he took the quilt down from the wall, slowly, carefully, like it suddenly embarrassed him. Brielle screamed, not because she was sorry, because the room was no longer hers. Outside, I heard the music stop, then voices, then my mother's scream, then the barn doors opened. Caleb came out carrying Lucy. Elaine followed him holding the wooden box. I ducked slightly in my car, but Elaine saw me. She stopped beside my window. I lowered it. Cold air rushed in. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Elaine said, "You sent it because of Lucy." It wasn't a question. I nodded. My throat felt tight. Elaine looked down at the box. "She waved at you when you left." I saw. Her eyes softened. "Thank you for waving back." That was when I almost broke. Not when my mother ignored me. Not when Brielle humiliated me. Not when my name was written under Overflow. But when someone I barely knew thanked me for one small act of kindness, as if it mattered. As if I mattered. Elaine stepped back. "Drive safe, Jenna." That sentence felt more like family than anything I had heard all day. I drove away before my parents could reach me. The gravel crunched under my tires. The barn lights got smaller in my rearview mirror. My phone started buzzing before I reached the highway. Mom. Dad. Mom again. A bridesmaid. A cousin. Unknown number. Then the texts began. "Jenna, answer me. Your sister is hysterical. How could you do this to our family?" I pulled into a gas station 20 minutes away and stared at that last message. Our family. It was always our family when there was blame to share, never when there was love to give. I bought a burnt coffee from the gas station and sat under the fluorescent lights while trucks idled around me. For the first time in years, nobody needed me to fix anything. Nobody needed me to go back inside. Nobody needed me to calm Brielle down. Nobody needed me to protect my parents from the consequences of what they had allowed. And I realized something that felt almost impossible. I did not have to go. The next morning, I woke up in my apartment in Raleigh with my green dress hanging over a kitchen chair and sunlight coming through the blinds. For one peaceful second, I forgot. Then everything came back. The coat closet, the quilt, Brielle's voice, Lucy's empty wrist, my mother's scream. I turned on my phone. 34 missed calls, 11 voicemails. A text from Dad sat at the top. "I'm sorry. I should have seen it sooner." I read it 3 times. Then another message appeared from Mom. We didn't know she would say those things. I almost laughed. That was my mother's favorite kind of apology. She only apologized for the part other people heard. I typed back, "You knew how she treated me. You just didn't think it mattered." Then I turned my phone off again. Not silent, off. The apartment became quiet. The refrigerator hummed. A dog barked somewhere outside. A neighbor laughed on the sidewalk below. Normal life kept moving. And for the first time, my normal life did not feel small. My rent was mine. My job was mine. My tired students who hugged me in the hallway were mine. My secondhand couch, my little balcony, my 2 tomato plants, my chipped coffee mug, my Friday grocery runs, my quiet mornings. None of it was nothing. It was a life I had built without making anyone else disappear. That afternoon, Dad came to my apartment. He drove 3 hours. I saw him through this peephole holding a folded piece of blue cotton in his hand. For a long moment, I did not open the door. Then I did. He looked older than he had at the wedding. No tie, no polished smile. Just a tired man holding a piece of fabric like it might explain 30 years. "Your mother didn't come," he said. "I didn't ask." He nodded. We stood there awkwardly. Then he held out the fabric. "I took this from my old work shirt," he said. "For your square." "I know." His eyes filled. "I told myself you were strong enough not to care." I didn't comfort him. "That was new?" He swallowed. "But strong people still deserve to be included." The words hurt because they were true. Because I had needed him to know that when I was 8, when I was 13, when I was 25, sitting at Thanksgiving while Brielle's empty chair got more attention than my whole life. "I'm sorry," he said. I looked at the fabric in his hand. "Are you sorry because everyone finally saw it?" I asked. "Or because you finally saw me?" He closed his eyes. When he opened them, he looked smaller. Both, he admitted. It was the first honest thing anyone in my family had said in a long time. So I took the fabric, not as forgiveness, as proof that I had not imagined the missing piece. Dad asked if he could come in. I said no. His face fell, but he nodded. "Fair enough." At the stairs, he stopped. "Brielle says she'll never forgive you." I almost smiled. "That's okay," I said. I never asked her to. After he left, I placed the blue cotton on my kitchen table. For years, I thought dignity meant staying calm while people hurt me. I thought respect meant being useful enough that one day my family would finally notice. I thought family meant accepting whatever seat they gave me, even if it was beside a coat closet. I was wrong. Dignity is not silence. Dignity is knowing when silence is being used to erase you. Respect is not something you earn by shrinking. Family is not the people who write your name in pencil and call you dramatic when you ask why. And legacy is not a quilt, a wedding photo, a last name, or a speech under string lights. Legacy is how people feel when they stand beside you. Do they feel safe, seen, protected, or do they feel like they have to become smaller so you can feel important? My sister wanted a perfect wedding. What she revealed was an ugly heart. My parents wanted one peaceful day. What they got was the truth they had avoided for 30 years. And me, I lost my seat at their table, but I finally stopped begging for one. A week later, I drove to the coast alone. No big plan. No dramatic escape. Just a cheap motel near the water, a paperback book, and a diner where nobody knew my family. On the second morning, I sat outside with coffee and watched the sun rise over the Atlantic. My phone sat on the table beside me. Quiet. For once, quiet did not feel like being ignored. It felt like peace. I thought about Lucy. I hoped she would grow up knowing love does not ask children to disappear. I thought about Caleb. I hoped he would find someone who loved the life he already had, not just the life they could take from him. I thought about the blue fabric on my kitchen table. Maybe one day I would sew it into something, not a family quilt, something smaller, something honest, something for my own home. And I thought about Brielle, not with hate. That surprised me. Hate still keeps you tied to people who hurt you. I did not want a tie. I wanted distance, clean, honest distance. My sister spent her whole life trying to prove she was chosen. But being chosen by people who are afraid of your tantrums is not love. It is management. And I was done being managed. That wedding began with my name written in pencil under Overflow. It ended with everyone finally seeing what had been overflowing for years. The favoritism, the silence, the excuses. The way a family can erase one daughter slowly, politely, and then act shocked when she refuses to disappear. I used to think walking away meant losing. Now I know better. Sometimes walking away is the first time you choose yourself. Sometimes the family table is not worth the seat. And sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. Just the sound of your car starting. Your tires on gravel. Your life moving forward without waiting for people who never saved you a place. I did not get my seat at their table. I got something better. I got myself back. So tell me, if your own family treated you like an outsider at your sister's wedding, would you stay quiet to keep the peace? Or would you finally let the truth speak for you?